Page 9, 190 BC, abacus. Artificial intelligence started with the calendar and abacus, writes engineer and author Jeff Krimmel. Artificial intelligence is any technology that helps human being perform a cognitive task. In this light, a calendar is a piece of artificial intelligence. It supplement or replace our memory. Likewise, an abacus is piece of artificial intelligence. We have no need to perform complex arithmetic in our head. There is evidence of instruments used for performing calculation in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, but the oldest surviving counting board dates to around 300 BC, increase with a Salamis tablet and a marble slab with several group of people parallel line marking. Other boards used in antiquity were usually wood, metal or stone, and they contain lines or grooves along which beads or stone were moved. Around 100 C, the Aztecs invented a Napo Zintin, referred to by aficionados as Aztec computer, an abacus-like device that made use of corn kernel threaded through wooden frame to help operator perform computations. The modern abacus, which contain beads that move along the rods, dates at least as far back as 190 C in China, where it called sonpan. In Japan, the abacus is called soroban. In some sense, the abacus may consider ancestor of the computer. And like the computer, the abacus serves as a tool to allow humans to perform fast calculation in commerce and in engineering. With slight variation in design, abacuses are still used in China, Japan, part of former Soviet Union, and Africa. Although the abacus is generally used for fast addition, subtraction, and experienced users are able to quickly multiply, divide, and calculate square roots. In 1946, a calculating competition was held in Tokyo between Japanese soroban operator and person using a electric calculator to see which method yielded faster result to several problems of arithmetic. In most cases, the soroban operator beat the electric calculator. So important is the abacus that in 2005, Forbes.com reader, editor, and panel of experts ranked the abacus as the second most important tool of all time in terms of its impact on human civilization. Third on the list were the knife and the compass, respectively. The abacus has had a huge impact on human civilization. For many centuries, this device served as a tool to allow people to perform fast calculation in commerce and engineering, employed by European long before the use of Hindu-Arabic numeral system. Page 11, 125 BC, a Tinkathera mechanism. In his book Artificial Intelligence, psychologist Alan Granham discussed that Antikythera mechanism and knots. Perhaps the principal line of development that led to AI was the attempt to produce mechanism machines that took the drudgery out of human intelligence endeavor and at the same time eliminated some of the error to which it is prone. The mechanism is an ancient geared computing device that was used to calculate astronomical positions discovered by sponge divers around 1900 in a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island Athinkia. The device is thought to have been built around 150 or 100 BC, as described by journalist to merchant among the salvage hoard subsequently shipped to Athens was piece of formless rock that no one noticed at first until it cracked open, revealing bronze gear wheel, pointer, and tiny Greek inscription. A sophisticated piece of machinery consisting of precisely cut dials, pointer, and at least 30 interlocking gear wheel. Nothing close to its complexity appear again in the historical record for more than 1,000 years until the development of astronomical clock in medieval Europe. A dial on the front of the device probably carried at least three hands, one indicating the date and other two indicating the position of the sun and the moon. The device was also probably used to track dates of ancient Olympic games, predict solar eclipse, and indicates other planetary motions. The moon mechanism uses a special train of bronze gear, two of which are linked with a slightly offset axis to indicate the position and phase of the moon. As is known today from Kepler's law of planetary motion, the moon travels at different speed as its orbit Earth, faster when it is closer to Earth, and this speed differentiate is modeled by the Athinca mechanism. Even though the ancient Greek were not aware of the actual elliptical shape of the orbit. Merchant writes, by turning the handle on the box, you could make time pass forward or backward to see the state of the cosmos today, tomorrow, last Tuesday, or 100 years in the future. Whoever owned this device must have felt like master of the heaven. Page 13. 1206. Al Jazeera's automata. Picture of peacock pouring water and some person standing onto the mechanism where it looks like it is a sliding slope. The polymath inventor, artist, and engineer Ismail al Jazeera, 1136 to 1206, lived during the height of the Islamic Golden Age, following his father as the chief engineer at Ertuğrul place in Anatolia, present day Turkey. Al Jazeera's Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, written at the request of his royal employer and published the year at a year Al Jazeera died, contained description of numerous mechanical devices that Al Jazeera had built, including moving human and animal automata as well as water raising mechanism, fountains and clocks. During his research and engineering, Al Jazeera employed camshafts, crankshafts, escapement wheel, segmental gear, and other sophisticated mechanism. Among his automata are moving peacock driven by water, a waitress that serves the drink, and musical robot band of four automatic musicians in a boat with changing facial expression that were controlled by rotating shaft. Some researchers have speculated that the movement of the robot band may have been programmable, indicating an extra degree of technical sophistication. His elephant clock feature, humanoid robot shrinking, striking a cymbal at regular interval, along with a robotic bird that chirped as the script rotated, marking out time with his pen. Al Jazeera Castle clock feature 5 automaton musician. According to English engineer and his historian Donald R. Hill, famous for his English translation of Al Jazeera work, it is impossible to overemphasize the importance of Al Jazeera's work in the history of engineering. Until modern times, there is no other document from any cultural area that provides a comparable wealth of instructions for the design, manufacturing, assembly of machines. No doubt, this is a partly due to the fact that there was usually a social and cultural divide between those who made and those who wrote. When a scholars described a machine that had been constructed by an illiterate craftsman, he was usually interested in the finished product. He neither understood nor cared about the messy business of construction. We therefore owe a great debt to Al Jazeera's employer for our possession of a unique document. Page number 15, 1220. Lancelot Copper Knight. Simple example of AI in the form of mechanical man and creature became common in European medieval time. When has historian Ali Truitt writes Golden Bird and Beast, music, musical fountains, and robotic servant astound and terrifying guest. Automata stood at the intersection of natural knowledge, including magic and technology, and were troubling links between art and nature. Both actual and functional devices in ancient literature provide a fascinating glimpse of an interdependence of science, technology, and the imagination. One famous example of fictional medieval robot occurs at a Lancelot of Lake, an old French prose tale that recounts the adventure of King Arthur and his knight of the Round Table, including the secret romance of Sir Lancelot and Arthur's wife, Guinevere. While outside Dolorous Garde, a frightening enchanted castle, Lancelot encountered a small army of robotic copper knights. After entering the castle, he defeats two more sword wielding copper knight as they guard an internal chamber where a young copper woman holds the key to the enchantment. He uses the key to open a box that contains 30 copper tubes, from which come terrifying cries, and he quickly falls asleep. Upon awakening, he finds that the copper woman has collapsed to the ground and the copper knight are shattered. Historian Jessica Risky writes the automaton knights and damsels of Arthurian legend were accompanied by accompanied by gold, silver, and copper children, satyr, archer, musician, oracle, and giants. This fictional artificial beings and had plenty of real counterparts. Actual mechanical people and animals thronged the landscape of late medieval and early modern Europe. As one example, around the same time as the late of Lancelot Copper Knight, French artist and engineer Villard created a mechanical eagle that was designed to turn its head towards the Deacon. When he read from the Gospel, Riskin notes that this lifelike automata provide a context for scientific and philosophical model of living being as a machine that emerged in the 17th century. Page number 17. 1300 Hesdin Mechanical Park. Starting around the 1300, the park at Hesdin in the northeastern France evolved into famous site for a lifelike simulation of human and animal. Hesdin automata include androids, monkey, birds, and a timekeeping device. The earliest Hesdin machines were built at the request of Robert II, Count of Artois. Examples include a bridge with six group of mechanical monkeys covered in a badger fur to make them appear realistic. A mechanized boar head adorned the wall of pavilion. When Robert died, his daughter Mahout became the patron of innovation and continued with the upkeep of his engines of amusement. For example, in 1312, the monkeys were covered with new fur and horns were added to make them appear demonic. The idea of automaton park may have been kindled from Islamic culture and engineers along with automata in French Romance literature. Historian Scott Wright has Hesdin's centrality in the European idea of artificial marvel is indicative of the way this new phenomena of wonder was replacing supernatural contingency with the motives of God life. Technological innovation allowed them to begin reenacting even the traditional supernatural theme of romance in their elaborate hall and pleasure gardens. Over the years, work continued in Hasdin with upgrade to various mechanical marvels, including a wooden hermit who spoke to onlook- onlooker, a talking owl, and fountain with mechanical birds. The waving monkeys and other automata were most likely operated by weight-driven mechanism with clockwork parts or hydraulics. This robotic installation offered visitors a glimpse of future with more widespread automation mission. As historian Sylvia writes, the role of automata in progress of technology is considerable importance. Effort to make Efforts to imitate life by mechanical means resulted in the development of mechanical principle and lead to the production of complex mechanism which have fulfilled technology's original aim, the reduction or simplification of physical labor. Page number 19. Ramon Lulu's Arms Magna 1305. The quest for artificial intelligence begin with dreams as all quests do, writes computer scientist Nilsson. People have long imagined machines with the human ability automata that move and devices that reason. One of the earliest devices in the history of AI is the Lullian circle. In his book Art Magna, Catalan philosopher Ramon Lull included a paper construction of rotating centric circle with letter and words written along their circumferences. Much like a mechanical clock, the the character and words could be lined up in novel combination, but in this case, the combination generated a fountain of new ideas and logical exploration. Arthur Martin Gardner writes it was the earliest attempt in the history of formal logic to employ geometrical diagram for the purpose of discovering non-mathematical truth, and that first attempt to use the mechanical devices a primitive logic machine to facilitate the operation of logic system. Lull's device for computing literally creativity provided an early method of using logical means to produce a knowledge, writes author Lul demonstrated in an extremely elementary but nevertheless workable way the human thought can be described and even imitated by a device. This was a small step towards the thinking machine. Let us imagine Lul sitting at the table by candlelight, turning his desk to combine words. He believed, according to other author Madej, a higher knowledge would be revealed and would provide a logical answer to questions about religion and creation. He wanted to investigate truth and produce a new proof through this combinatory devices. The research on formal logic by German polymath and calculus co-founder Gottfried, as well as his invention of the stepped reckoner, was stimulated by Lull's work. As data researcher and Professor Jonathan Gray writes, the initial trickle of Lull's and Leibniz's arcane combinatorial fantasies have gradually given way to ubiquitous computational technologies, practice, and idea which are interwoven into the fabric of our words, the broader consequences of which are still unfolding around us, regardless of whether or not machine operates in the way that we imagine. One set of rotating wheels and combination. Page number 21, 1352, religious automata. Various automata associated with Christian church appeared in late medieval and early modern Europe, ranging from automata cries to mechanical levels and certain machines that made noise and struck out their tongue. For example, during the 15th century, the rood of grace in the Boxley Abbey in Kent, England, was a mechanical likeness of Jesus on the cross that moved his eyes, lips, and other parts of his body. Automation, angel, and automated simulation of a biblical event also become common in the late 15th century, as recounted by history professor Jessica Riskin. Automation were familiar feature of daily life, originating in churches and cathedrals and spreading from there. Jesuit missionary carried them to China as offering to dramatize the power of Christian Europe. Particularly interesting is Starboard astronomical clock in the Cathedral Notre Dame in France. Construction of clock began in 1352 and it featured a rooster automaton that moved its head, flapped its wing, and crowed at particular times. The clock also featured moving angels around 1547. This clock was replaced and upgraded while retaining the bird automaton. The second clock stopped working in 1788. It wasn't until 1838 that the current clock came into being with new mechanism to replace the old ones. Aside from the automata, the Starboard clock feature a perpetual calendar, including means to time the calendar date of Easter, a display of solar and lunar eclipse, and more. In 1896, author Fanny Coe wrote that Starboard clock is almost like a small theater. There are so many people and animals that have their little part to play. The hours are struck by angels, and at midday and midnight, life-size figure of Christ and his 12 disciples come from door. Then glided clock cock upon the upper turret of clock, flaps its wings and crow. The scholar Julius Fisher writes calendrical science and clock craftsmanship evolved to make artifacts that explain and praise the Christian universe. forerunners of the later desire to put the skill of scientist and artisan to use for earthly benefit of people. Page 23, 1495. Da Vinci's robot knight. Da Vinci's armored robot knight set up, opened its arm and closed them perhaps in a grabbing motion. Moved its head by a flexible neck and opened its visor, right robotic engineer Mark Ronson, perhaps to reveal a frightening physiognomy fabricated of wood, brass, or bronze and leather. It was cable operated. Leonardo da Vinci, 1452 to 1590, the Italian Renaissance of polymath had interest that ranged from painting and architecture to anatomy and engineering. His journals include depictions and study of musical instrument, crank mechanism, and aforementioned mechanical knight, drawn around the year 1495 in the Codex Atlanticus 12 volume bound set of drawings and writings. The mechanism of Leonardo Robert design, which feature articulated joints and movable arms, jaw, head, and use a pulley system for moving the robot's part. The android wore German Italian medieval armor, could sit up and down, and had more than one gear system that operated separately to control the upper and lower body. Leonardo sketch model for other automaton that included birds and carts. Although we do not know if Leonardo's mechanical knight was ever built, similar Robert may have inspired other engineers such as Italo-Spanish engineer Giuliano Turano, who built a mechanical monk which used cable and pulleys for King Philip II of Spain, who attributed his son's miraculous recovery from serious head injury to the divine intervention of Franciscan missionary named Didacus. Driven by a key wound spring, the clockwork, Didacus walked while moving his mouth and arm in silent prayer. Today, he is exhibited at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., and is still operational. Reflecting on Da Vinci's Robot Knight, author Cynthia Philip and Sana Priver write Leonardo's robot design was culmination of his research into anatomy and geometry. What better way to combine mechanical science and human form? He took the proportion, and relationship inherent in Roman architecture and applied them to movement and life inherent in all living beings. In a way, the robot was Vitruvian man brought to life. Page number 25. 1580 Golem. According to the Forward newspaper, long before Stephen Hawking warned us about the danger of artificial intelligence, the legend of Golem conveyed to Jews the same subliminal message. A golem from Jewish folklore is an animated creature crafted from the clay or mud that exhibits several forms of artificial intelligence in a man-made automation that is difficult to control once the technology is activated and set loose in the world. Probably the most famous golem is one that Prague Rabbi Judah Low allegedly created in 1580 to defend the Jew of the Prague ghetto from anti-Semitic attack. The story of this Prague golem was recorded by several authors of the 1800s. A golem is usually inscribed with magical or religious words that keep it animated. For example, according to legend, golem creator sometimes wrote the name of God on the golem's forehead or on a clay tablet or paper under its tongue. Other golems were animated by the word Amet, truth in the Hebrew language, written on their forehead. By erasing the first letter to form Mat, days in Hebrew, the column can be deactivated. Some other old Jewish recipe for creating a column required a person to combine each letter of the Hebrew alphabet with each letter from Yehu, telegram, name of God. Then pronounce each of the resulting letter pairs with every possible vowel sound. The tetragrammaton serves as an activation word to pierce reality and energize the being. The word golem appears only once in the Bible, where it refers to an imperfect or unformed body. The New International Version translates the words as "Your eyes show my unformed body. All the days or ordained for me were written in your book. Before one of them came to be in Hebrew, golem can signify a shapeless mass or brainless entity, and Talmud uses the word to imply imperfect. As such, most golem in literature are depicted as dumb, but they can be made to perform simple repetitive tasks. In fact, the challenge for the golem creator was to determine how to finally stop the golem from carrying out the repeating repeating a task. Page 27, 1651. Hobbies Leviathan. In 1651, English philosopher Thomas Hobbes wrote Leviathan, a book that focuses on structure of society and its relationship with government. In the book, Hobbes makes several statements that have caused science historian George Dyson to refer to Hobbes as the patriarch of artificial intelligence. For example, in his introduction, Hobbes compared the body to mechanical engine. Nature, the art whereby God hath made and governed the world, is by the art of man imitated. The man can make an artificial animal, for seeing life is but a motion of limbs, the beginning whereof is in some principal part with it. Why may we not say that all automaton engine that moves themselves by springs and wheels as doth a watch have an artificial life? For what is the heart but a spring, and nerves but so many strings, and joints but so many wheels, giving motion to the whole body? When human reason, according to Hobbes, the person performs symbolic calculation and manipulation, something akin to addition and subtraction by rational thinking, I mean computation. Now, to compute is either to collect the sum of many things that are added together, or to know what remains when one thing is taken out of another. Dyson asks if reasoning can be reduced to arithmetic, which even in Hobbes' time could be performed by mechanism. Then is a mechanism capable of reasoning? Can mechanical machines think? Computer architecture. Daniel Hillis offer his own speculation on the possibility of creating artificial mind that can think for itself. For those who fear machinistic explanation of the human mind, our ignorance of how local interaction produce emergent behavior offers a reassuring fog in which to hide the soul. Although individual computer and individual computer programs are developing the element of artificial intelligence, it is in larger network or the network at large that we are developing a more likely medium for emergence of the Leviathan artificial mind. Page number 29, 1714. The consciousness mill. If we believe that consciousness is the result of pattern and dynamic interrelationship of brain cells and their components, then our thoughts, emotions, and memories might be replicated in moving assemblies of Tinker Toys. The Tinker Toys mind would need to be very big to represent the complexity of our mind. But perhaps a very complex mechanism could be created in the same way researchers have made the tic-tac-toe playing computer out of 10,000 Tinker Toys. In principle, our mind could be hypostasized in the movement of leaves and twigs or in the flocking of birds. In 1714, the German philosopher and mathematician in his treatise The Monadology imagined an AI-infused machine as big as Mill that was capable of thinking and feeling. He also realized that if we could explore inside, we would find nothing but pieces that push one's one against the other and never anything to account for perception. Similarly, it's pos- it is possible that conscious AI entitles entity could be developed in the future, even if they are not from wet organic matter. Philosopher Nick Bostrom consider a single electronic brain cell. The brain cell is physical object with certain characteristic. If we come to fully understand this characteristic and learn to replicate them electronically, right, surely our electronic brain cell can perform the same function as an organic one. And if it can be done with a brain cell, why wouldn't the resulting system be just as conscious as brain? A robotic, right? We are a conscious being simulated on a bunch of neural hardware, and conscious being is only found in an interpretation of things that go on neural hardware. It's not the actual chemical signal that are squirting around. It's a certain high level interpretation of an aggregate of this signal. The only thing that makes a consciousness different from other interpretation like the value of dollar bill. Similarly, perhaps your brain could function even if partitioned into hard, 100 little boxes separated by great distance and connected by wires of optical fiber. To understand this better, imagine your left and right brain hemisphere a mile apart and connected by artificial cords. Colosseum. You would still be you, right? Page 31, 1726. Licardo book writing engine. Gulliver's Traveller, a popular novel published in 1726, Anglo-Irish author Jonathan Swift describes a mechanical creativity engine that may be the first AI device extensively discussed in a novel. While Gulliver is in a fictional city of Lagoda, Lagodo, a professor shows him a device for generating literature, technical book, and interesting ideas. Gulliver explains how, by his contrivance, the most ignorant person at a reasonable charge and with a little bodily labor might write book in philosophy, poetry, politics, law, mathematics, and theology without the least assistance from genius or study. Gulliver is led to the device, which occupy 20 square feet in India and has various wooden surfaces linked together by slender wires. The tile-like surface are covered with paper on which were written all the words of their language in their several moods, tenses, and but without any order. Gulliver described the device's operation. The pupils At his command, took each of them, hold on an iron handle, whereof there were 40 fixed round the edges of frame, and giving them a sudden turn, the whole disposition of the words was entirely changed. He then commanded to read the several lines softly as they appeared to read the several lines softly as they appeared upon the frame, and where they found three or four words together that might make part of sentence, they dictated to the four remaining boys, who were scribes. At every turn, the words shifted into new places, as square bits of wood moved upside down. Author Eric writes the machine's purpose, the claim of its illustrious inventor, his call for public funding, and the operation of the device by students. Clearly, classify it as an early attempt at artificial intelligence and have caused it to be cited often as typical of this discipline. Later forms of combinational, random, or artificial creativity in the real world include a computer program that generated prose for the book The Policeman's Beard is Half Constructed, published in 1984. Page 33, 1738. Duck's automaton exhibited in the garden the Tibbler may be one of the most celebrated robots of all time, writes American neuroscientist Paul Glimcher. Hundred of moving parts and feather. Yes, it moved its head, muddled water with its bill, flapped its wing, quacked and gulped food from the exhibitor's hand, and carried out many more realistic actions. After a remain few minutes remain of digested food would be expected below. Of course, the duck was not really digesting food, and the tail end of the duck was secretly preloaded with simulated excrement. Nevertheless, such a versatile automaton trigger discussion about the line between the living and the purely mechanical, as well as the degree to which such boundary might be blurred as robotic entity become even more versatile. The through time fascination with famous digesting duck has grown, and the odd creature even makes an appearance in Thomas highly acclaimed 1997 novel Mason and Dixon, where the creature become conscious and follow the terrorized friendship with its beak of death. Marvelous automaton flute player, driven by several bellow attached to three windpipes, gear and cam's trigger lever that control the flute player's finger, tongue, and lips, and the mechanism flutist was the first example of what defined as an android, that is, human figure performing human functions. White historian Jessica Riskin more immediately practical in the 1740s. True, weave silk which alas caused human silk worker to rebel and pelt him with stone in the street. As Glimcher writes, duck race for the 18th century audience ancient question that still haunt modern neuroscience are the mechanical interactions that occur inside each of us sufficient to generate the complex pattern of behavior that we actually produce. What is that define us as a human being? The complexity of the behavior that we produce or a specific pattern of interacting matter that appear to generate our behavior. Mechanical Turk. A peek inside the Turk. Page 35, 1770. From Joseph, how to Turk operated. The Mechanical Turk was a chess playing android created in 1770 by Hungarian inventor Wolfgang and presented to the Habsburg Empress Maria Theresa of Austria. The machine appeared to play an excellent game of chess as it defeated players in Europe and Americas, including such notable as Napoleon Bonaparte and Benjamin Franklin. The life-size android adorned with a robe, turban, and black beard sat at a large cabinet with chessboard at top and actually used its hand to move chess piece. The secret of its operation was not well known for many years, but today we understand that the complex cabinet cleverly concealed a human chess expert who used magnet to move the piece and and various levers to move parts of the android. To deepen the mystery, Kaplan would actually open the cabinet doors before play to reveal clockwork machinery inside the apparently no visible space for a human to hide. Even if many people understood the Turk to be sophisticated trick, it nevertheless caused the people to wonder what kind of work machines were capable of and what human capability machines might replace.